Watch this.
We told you to pay attention to the precinct committee members on your primary ballot. And that left a lot of you to ask, how do we know who's who? Well, if only there was a list.
I hope I don't get a ticket.
Which is something Caldwell visitors have to think about now that the parking meters are up and running. We found out how the lunch rush feels about it. Paying for parking? Well, that's second nature in the city of trees. But how far back has Boise been collecting change on cars? Let's just say it's older than the interstate, which might give you a clue.
Right now, I don't think there'll ever be a time in Idaho's history where the precinct committee members and the precinct races are more important to our future.
Well, back in April, we did a story on the grassroots of Idaho's Republican Party and how the election of often unknown hyper-local precinct committee members were more influential in state politics than many people realized. How hyper-local are these positions? Well, there are nearly 200 in Ada County alone. And there's a direct correlation between who is elected to run a precinct and who ends up running the party, because those people, the committee members, they decide who will be delegates to the state GOP convention. And maybe I'm overanalyzing this, but does it seem like there's been a lot more attention being paid to who is elected to a precinct committee position this primary election? We're seeing a lot more signs out there, right? Which might explain why we've been getting a lot of these text messages like this. Where can I find information? This is from Laura. She wants to know where she can find information on precinct committeemen. She has spent 2 hours searching and can't find anything on the candidates, the two candidates that are on her ballot. A lack of information makes it kind of tough to make an informed decision, she says. And we've seen this before. Those names on the bottom of the ballot haven't historically gotten a lot of attention. And when it comes to voter guides, well, it seems that trend continues. Even on our voter guide at KTVB.com, aside from Senate and House seats, all we have listed under Ada County is who is running for county commissioner. So yes, it makes it tough to do your own research on what some are calling the most important precinct races in the history of the state. Luckily, some groups have done that research for you, Laura. For example, if you live in Ada County Republicans, well, they put out a list of who they think you should vote for. There's also a list of endorsed precinct candidates being offered by a group called Gem State Heist, which is being promoted by the blog The Idaho Tribune, of who Kootenai County voters should choose for these positions. There's another list of counties from across the state put together by the Gem State conservatives who have been very vocal about the direction Idaho's current GOP leadership is taking the party.
I've seen lots of lists, like this guy says these are my guys, and this guy says these are my guys. From the Gem State Conservatives' perspective, each one of our candidates actually that's on there has a website, and you can click on it and view some information about their biography, about what they believe, what politics they believe in politically.
So they see those names at the bottom of the ballot.
Yeah.
They don't recognize them.
Call them.
Call them.
Go to our website, IloveIdaho.org, and you're going to find great Republicans who've been lifelong Republicans around the state who believe in a common sense party and a common sense pragmatic approach.
But there are other lists out there. Other organizations have put out lists say this is who you should vote for.
All I can tell you is that we picked people who will work for the voters in their precinct. I didn't ask, will they agree with me? We said, are they going to work for the voters in their precinct? That's who's on that list.
Okay, so which list is the list you should lean into? I guess that depends on where you stand politically. If you're a fan of the Idaho Dispatch, or Idaho Tribune, I should say, and what they represent, well, then look there. If you're not a fan of the direction the state Republican Party is heading these days, well, then check out the Gem State Conservatives. We did reach out to Ada County, by the way, and what's odd about this endorsement list being pushed by the Ada County GOP Central Committee Vice Chair Ryan Spoon was that we thought Central Party leadership was supposed to support all party candidates, not spoon-feed endorsements. Again, we reached out to Ada County Republicans to give them an opportunity to shed some light on their lists, but we've yet to hear back. Bottom line, yes, Laura, some election research is left up to you, the voter. And this year, some groups have tried to make that research less rigorous. But if you want to ask your precinct candidates questions specifically, call them or seek them out on social media and just ask. As for information on the rest of your ballot, you can check out our voter guide. It's in English and in Spanish, and it's on KTVB.com. You can also text the word VOTE to 208-321-5614, and we'll send a link directly to your phone. Remember when you could drive right into the center of the city, pull into a parking space, and not have to pay? Parking for free In Caldwell, I remember it like it was yesterday. Probably because it was. Because starting today, Caldwell's parking meters are live. And like Boise, a couple of bucks will get you a couple of hours downtown. It's something the city has been planning for about a year. But still, as Andrew Bartline found out, the rollout of the Pay to Park program caught a few Caldwellers? Let's go with that. They caught a few Caldwellers off guard.
Caldwell's building a reputation as the place you go when you need to leave
I've come to love Idaho.
somewhere else.
Isn't it weird?
Change.
We're from Utah.
It's in Leanne's DNA
Yeah, they are big.
and common ground
Yeah.
with her neighbor Debbie.
I'm used to Seattle. You pay for everything over there.
But starting today, change in Caldwell is a metered memory.
And I thought, you've got to be kidding me. I said it to myself 3 times.
Turns out,
I was a little confused on when they were starting.
it caught a few off guard.
Okay, sweet.
The city's keeping it friendly for quick visits.
You get free 15 minutes, and then after that, you pay. 15's all I need.
Caldwell hasn't projected how much these meters will raise for the city because money isn't the bottom line.
Merchants were having trouble with people parking all day on the streets, so the customers didn't have anywhere to park when they wanted to come in and shop.
Keep them moving, all to the benefit of local businesses and seemingly to the detriment of the technologically challenged.
I still don't know whether I paid or paid twice or thrice.
But there's a simple solution for the hard-headed, those still stuck in their ways.
We didn't have to pay for parking in Brigham City, Utah.
Just hoof it.
I think I found a parking spot that was free. Shoes are made for walking.
Not the toughest task to avoid the downtown tax.
Pay $2, yeah, for 2 hours, yes.
Because regardless,
So, how are you doing?
these two
I'm just so happy.
wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
Well, when we decided we were going to move up this area, I called the local police department to see about the safety issues and the entertainment and if it was family friendly. And so here we are.
And through Caldwell's growth and inevitable change,
We got the Cluck Norris.
one thing's set in stone.
We have a 2% interest rate on our home.
They'll have a few nickels left over after lunch to feed the meter. Caldwell says they will have a projection sooner, a better idea, I should say, about how much the city expects to raise with these parking meters. They also plan on putting in 50 more spots in sort of a main part of town around Indian Creek Plaza where this paid parking is. And that's another piece that they hope helps the downtown businesses, because the point of it, Brian, that we've heard going back to October, I think, when this was announced, is to keep traffic going through because it felt stagnant down there.
Yeah, you can park
Cycle
and just stay
people
there.
through.
Yeah, that's kind of the premise of that. And it's only around Indian Creek Plaza. You can, if you want to walk a couple blocks, you can park away from there, right?
Yes,
For free.
as Leanne, I think I'm remembering her
Yes.
name right. That's what she did. She parked kind of a ways away and walked it in. So if you want to hoof it a few blocks, you could save a few bucks. If you have a couple coins, it takes cards too. You can do the app as well. A lot of different options.
Work up an appetite. Caldwellers.
Caldwellians.
Caldwelliers.
Caldwellites.
We'll go with that. Caldwellers. Caldwellers, because they dwell in Caldwell. I'm with you. Thanks, Andrew. All right, downtown Caldwell, they're a little late to this metered parking game. 84 years ago, when people were driving around in Packards and Willys and cars called coupes, Boise was about to do what dozens of other cities across the country already did, put in parking meters. But the plan, well, didn't play out without a hitch. The idea of putting money into meters to park did not initially sit well with downtown Boise business owners. The story goes, a few days prior to the parking meters being put into play, 126 signed a letter to the mayor saying the machines would hurt their bottom line. Even the Auto Club offered their opposition. But Boise Mayor James Straight, a proclaimed proponent of parking meters, gave it to them straight. What about the country folk who come to the city to shop, he said. Putting a paid time limit on parking would keep space available for farmers, whose time and gas was just as valuable as anyone else's, he said. So City Council approved the idea of putting nearly 600 parking meters in the downtown district, with even the local paper printing a best practices page on how to use them to avoid a ticket. Then on March 26, 1940, Boise's first parking meters were open for business, charging a penny for every 12 minutes or an hour for a nickel. Stay too long, well, that'll cost you a $1 fine. 4 days later, the plan proved prosperous, with drivers dropping more than 16,000 pennies and nearly 5,000 nickels, adding up to almost $400. And by the end of the year, $22,500 in nickels and in pennies, well, that had been collected by those 590 parking meters in Boise. The city would get 25% of that. The rest went to the parking meter company. Today, though, there are about 3,000 parking meters in downtown Boise where rates are, well, they're determined by your location. But the first 20 minutes are free. And then there's the parking garages where the first hour is free. So there's all that. Pennies and nickels, these days, there's an app for that. I know, we kind of left you hanging when we showed you the story of a house getting stuck while it was being moved down the road. A few of you asked the obvious, like, where did it end up? Well, we can finally give you some closure. You know, viewer questions are part of the foundation of the 208, so let us know about something you've been curious about for a while. Or maybe you have the answers we're looking for. Text us, 208-321-5614. Always include your name and the hashtag the 208. That way we know who to give credit at the end of the show.
Well, how are we doing as far as the water situation? I know you've heard a lot about it. And of course, it's looking pretty good. Just starting out here, you can see very dry down in southern New Mexico and also in portions of western Montana. As we come in just a little bit closer, you can see what's abnormally dry in the yellows, severe to exceptional just to our north. But you know, all of southern Idaho, when it's blank like this, just means that we're average. And so that includes McCall, includes our entire viewing area. If you go over here to Idaho Falls, to Boise, even to sections of eastern Oregon, in fact, all of Nevada and California, for once, is doing very well at this particular point. But again, still very dry up into portions of western Montana. They could use some more moisture. Don't see much moisture coming in, but we are starting to melt the snow in some of the mountains. As you look up here at Stanley, still quite a bit left, though, so that's still a good thing. When you think about it this time of year, especially in the month of May, just heading into some of those summer months. So we still have more. And of course, our reservoirs are looking pretty good, pretty much on the full side, and still trying to prepare for more snowmelt that could be coming down into those reservoirs. We can see that as we look at some of those mountains there, especially around Stanley. Now, tomorrow the winds are going to be blowing. but they'll be blowing anywhere from about 10 to 15 miles an hour, at times about 5 miles an hour. I think we're going to have a very pleasant morning to begin with. And keep in mind, the high temperature tomorrow, which you're going to see coming up, which is a part of this, is that we likely will be up around 85 to 86 degrees. Just imagine that. So in Boise, 77 was the high in the current temperature for today. It's a lot nicer in the mountains right now as you look at temperatures in the 60s for McCall, Sun Valley, and the same thing for Stanley. And there's a few of those high clouds that are around the area. But even that temperature of 77 degrees is still above the average of 72. And we're going to be way above average when you think of that temperature of 72 degrees for tomorrow. But it's eventually going to drop as we get into next week. We'll see temperatures right around that average or a little bit below even. Take a look at the 10-day temperature trend, especially some of the mornings. So tomorrow morning, not bad, still a little chilly at 52 degrees. And then when we get into Sunday and Monday morning, just keep in mind as we talk about gardens and different things, most of these temperatures will not be dropping down into the 30s. As you're seeing here, we're looking at temperatures in the 40s next week as most of these temperatures drop. As you look at Sunday, the high temperature of 47 degrees, that is a week from this next Sunday, excuse me, where the low will be down to 42 degrees. So let's look at some of the highs in this 10-day temperature trend. There's the high tomorrow, possibility of 86. I've seen as high as 87 degrees. Doesn't look like we're going to be hitting 90, and 90 is the record. Most of the records this month are in the 90s. But you look at Friday and Saturday, you see how these temperatures are coming down. And then even into the weekend, we've got some 60s, which may seem a little chilly to you, but then again, maybe not. There's Thursday of next week where there's a possibility of a high of 63, and then eventually starting warming up as we get into the next weekend.
But there is a cat inside the house, so we did
Right
move
now?
Right now.
It won't leave.
Tried to catch it yesterday and couldn't do it, so I believe the cat's still in the house.
So the heck with it, it'll be fine, huh?
Should be all right. We put some food out, it'll be in good shape.
As will the house, hopefully, when it finds its new foundation about a mile up the road.
Okay, you remember that story? That was former KTVB reporter John Miller. A story we showed you about that stuck house last week. A few of you, though, you started wondering the same thing as John when you asked, okay, so the house that was moved, where is it now? Is it still just a mile up the road? Well, the story didn't give us any clues as to what road or where it was headed, where it ended up. So we were so glad when Sandy sent us a text message telling us that was her childhood home. She said the house and the barn arrived the next day and it was all put back together. She also went on to say a little bit more about that. She said it was her brother who was responsible for moving those buildings. It's a barn and a house, all those kind of things. And it was such a sight to see. Not only did it attract a crowd of neighbors to watch through the night, but all 3 local TV stations showed up to cover it. Everything went smoothly other than the house, which had a few unplanned stops, including that one that John Miller caught on camera. Sandy said her brother restored the house and is living in it today, where it still sits south of Victory in Maple Grove, and it remains the center of the Rutledge family activity. So that's good news. So there you go. The house still has a home. And as for how long it remained a home for that family cat, well, Sandy tells us it actually wasn't a family cat. It was a wild cat. It didn't bother to name it, and it stayed in the house for those 3 days while the house was being moved, and it also stuck around during the years of putting that house back together. It only showed up when it was time to eat. never-before-heard phone call, a guilty plea, and a gruesome planned attack on behalf of ISIS. Just some of the top headlines you need to know in today's 411. Here's Abby Davis.
Now, that problem is kind of causing its own trouble for itself.
Right. But there's other things in the project where when I'm going back over it, right, that I could have easily done or been inspired to do to avoid a lot of the issues that are going to come up with that.
A phone call from 2020 between Chad Daybell and his wife, Lori Vallow Daybell, was played in court today. Daybell is accused of murder and conspiracy in the deaths of Lori's 2 kids and his late wife, Tammy Daybell. The call was made while Lori was in the Madison County Jail the day before law enforcement found her children, JJ and Tylee, buried on Chad's property. In the call, Chad and Lori say Lori's brother Alex Cox, who they refer to as Ray, is the contractor over their house renovation project, and their blueprints are still intact. Cox is dead at this point, but Daybell claims he can talk to the dead and reassures Lori the project is going to work out. Prosecutors will likely rest their case tomorrow, followed by Chad's defense presenting his case. We don't know when he will start or how long that will take. Today, Skylar Meade pled guilty to prison escape and persistent violator charges. He's the man accused of escaping Idaho Department of Correction custody after receiving treatment at St. Alphonsus, then leading police on a 36-hour manhunt. Law enforcement is also investigating whether Meade and his alleged accomplice, Nicholas Umfenauer, were involved in 2 North Idaho homicides. Meade's sentencing is set for late July. The 18-year-old accused of planning attacks on Coeur d'Alene churches on behalf of ISIS won't stand trial for at least another year. That's according to the Coeur d'Alene Press. Alexander Mercurio was arrested by federal authorities in April for allegedly planning to beat people with metal pipes, slit throats with knives, and start fires inside a local church. A jury trial was set to begin this month, but a chief U.S. district judge ordered it to be moved to May of 2025. This week is National Police Officers Week, and happening tonight is the annual Idaho Peace Officers Memorial Candlelight Vigil. Come honor Idaho's fallen officers at 9 p.m. at the Idaho Peace Officers Memorial in Meridian, or tomorrow at an event at 10 a.m. Today is the last day to mail in your absentee ballot for the primary next Tuesday, if you want to make sure it gets there by Election Day. If you didn't think to throw it in the mailbox today, then don't worry. You can drop it off at a ballot drop box or at your county clerk's office before 8 p.m. election night. And remember, you can find a full breakdown of what's on your ballot on our English and Spanish voter guide at ktvb.com. You can also text VOTE to 208-321-5614 to get a link to our voter guide sent directly to your phone. And that's the 411 on the 208. I'm Abby Davis.
All right, a couple of questions on a precinct committee member story been talking about it for a couple weeks now. This one from Larry, though, asking if there's a list of Democrats running for committee seats. I guess you just have to check your ballot. You can go to your county website, election website, check your ballot, the sample ballot, pick on the Democrat ballot and see if that one is next. As for the other question, there is no list, my point. I haven't seen a Democratic list out there at this point. So the old adage of it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it must be a duck. Not applicable to Republicans running for office in Idaho, where anyone can claim to be Republican. Confusing for just about everyone by design, says Steve. But I guess it depends on which side of that spectrum that duck is walking. That's how you determine if that person gets your vote. Mysterious candidates. Senate Bill 1078 passed by the Senate would provide voter information pamphlets from the Secretary of State, basically saying we would all have a voter guide if legislature just approve it. And it was Senate Bill 1273. It did pass the Senate 22-13, I believe. 22-3, excuse me, or 13. It died in the Senate House of State Affairs Committee, and it would have cost $350,000 to provide a voter guide across all voters in the state of Idaho. Is there still a parking meter in Murphy? Yes, there is. $6 a year they make.